Lesson 49, Percents and Decimals and Using the Percent Equation. To start this lesson, we're going to start by writing fractions as decimals. Remember, a fraction is division in disguise. So this fraction here is like taking 1 and dividing it by 8. Okay, because it's a decimal, okay, I'm going to have to put a set of zeros here. 8 doesn't go into 1, so I'm going to put a 0 here and my decimal point. 8 does go into 10 once, and I get 8. A remainder of 2, and I bring down another 0. 8 goes into 20 twice. I get 16. Remainder of 4. 8 goes into 40 5 times. So 1/8 is 0.125, or 125 thousandths. Okay, so I've just written that fraction as a decimal. 3/4 is one that you should know. 4 goes into 3 is 0.75, or 75 hundredths. So this is how we would turn a fraction into a decimal. And again, remember, it's a division problem. So this one is 4 into 3. 4 goes into 30 7 times. Again, place your decimal here. 28. Bring down my 2. 4 goes into 20 5 times, and that's where my 0.75 comes from, or 75 hundredths. Okay, so it's easy to turn a fraction into a decimal, and you can use your calculators for this in homework. Okay, now let's look at writing a percent as a decimal. You do this by moving the decimal place 2 places to the left. Okay, because remember, a percent is over 100, so if I have 52 over 100, that's 52%. Okay, so if I move my decimal place 2 places to the left, that converts my percent to a decimal, just like 52 hundredths would be 0.52, or 52 hundredths. Okay, alright, this is like 4 hundredths, so 2 decimal places, and I get 4 hundredths. This one is 18.4 hundredths, so again, I'm going to move my decimal place 2 places to the left, and I get 0.184 thousandths. Right? So I've turned all of these decimals, or all of these percents, into decimals. Okay. Now, again, I can do the same thing that I did up here, but in reverse. I can write a decimal as a percent. Now if you look at the ones up here, 52, if I were to turn that back into a percent, I would go 2 places back to the right, and I would get 52%. Alright, so for each of these decimals, I'm going to move the decimal place 2 places to the right. So 1, 2, and I get 27%. Another way to look at this is in the hundredths place, the 7. So it's like 27 over 100. Well, remember, percent is per 100, so it's 27%. Right? Here's another one, 2 places to the right, or 3 hundredths. That would be 3%. Okay? Now this one's kind of interesting. If I go 2 places to the right, it's still a decimal. So I have 91 hundredths percent. So remember, it can also be a decimal. Sometimes you need to convert really small and large percents. So this one's 8 hundredths of a percent. Okay? Again, remember the rule that when you're moving or turning a percent into a decimal, you move the decimal place 2 places to the left. Alright? So I have a percent, I'm going to move 2 places to the left, and I get 0.00008. Okay? Because what this really was 0.08 over 100. Okay? So I had to add 2 more zeros. All right, now this is kind of the opposite. It's a bigger one. Here's my decimal point. If I go 2 places to the left, I get 5, okay, which is 500%. Okay, and actually when you think about that, that's like 500 over 100. Well, 500 over 100 is 5. Okay, now let's start to look at what we call the percent equation. Now that we know how to convert them, let's start thinking about what the percent equation is. Let's start with our percent proportion. Our part over our whole equals P over 100. Okay, now just like we did up here, 500 over 100 is 500%. We could also say A over B equals P percent. I can write it as over 100 like I did here, or I can write it as a percentage. Okay, now let's insert some extra writing space here. Show why that's true. Okay, if I have A over B, or my part over my whole, equals P percent, what if I want to solve that for A? Alright, so I'm going to write this again. A over B equals P percent. Okay, I want to get A by itself, so I'm going to multiply both sides of this by B. Remember, I can do this because I'm keeping my equation balanced. Alright, well, these cancel out here because it would be AB over B, which leaves me over here with A over 1, or A. And over here I'm left with P percent times B. This is what we call the percent equation. It's actually the same as the percent proportion, it's just written in a different way. So these two things are the same thing, they're just written differently. Okay, so let's apply this. Okay, we have a pharmacy that has 75% of 300 tablets that Dr. Cam prescribed for his patients. How many tablets does the pharmacy have? All right, well, the first thing you need to figure out is, what's the question they're asking? Well, they're asking, what is 75% of 300? Okay, so 75% of 300. Now we're going to translate this. Okay, so it says translate into the percent equation. Alright, so let's think about this. Is means equals. So you're saying what equals 75%, okay, this is like my P percent, okay, of is multiplication, and remember, of is where our whole is, so of B, so P percent of B. So A equals P percent of B. So we don't know A in this one, so I can use, instead of B here, I can use 300. So A equals 75% of 300. Okay, now let's look at this. How could I solve this? A equals 75% of 300. Right? Well, I can't really multiply my percent, so I'm going to turn it into a decimal. We just learned how to do that. That's 2 places to the left. So that's like saying A equals 0.75 times 300. Right? This is something that you can use your calculator for. So if I type 75 times 0.75 times 300, I'm going to get 225. So that means A equals 225. So that's my answer. Alright, and that makes sense too, because 75 is like 3/4 of 300. Okay, so 275 would be about right. Okay, so I started by writing what my question was. I translated it here, and then I solved right here. Okay, so those are the steps. So let's look at this one. Finding a part of the whole base using the percent equation. Okay, so this one's saying what number is 14% of 80? All right, again, remember is equals and of is multiplication. We have our percent here. This is of, so that must be our whole. And it's asking what number is, and so that's A. So what don't I know? Well, I don't know A. So I can translate this into A equals 14% of 80. All right. First step is to turn this into a decimal, so I'm going to do that. A equals 14 hundredths times 80. Okay, again, this is something that you can do on your calculator. 0.14 times 80 means that A equals 11 and 2/10. And that should be my answer. If I take 0.14 times 80, gives me 11.2. So that's my answer. All right. Now sometimes you're not looking for A. Sometimes you're looking for the percent. So it says what percent of 240 is 72? Again, use multiplication for of and equals for is, and your equation falls into place. It's asking what percent, so we know this is the p percent part, of 240. Remember, of is before the whole, and is 72, that must be the A. Alright, so now we've translated it. So p percent times 240 equals 72. Alright, well, I don't know what p percent is, and I've got it multiplied by 240. So the inverse, or the undo for multiplying by 240, is to divide by 240. So I'm going to divide both sides of this by 240. So I put my line in here. So now I have this fraction. Right? Well, remember, fractions are division in disguise. So if I take 72 and I divide it by 240, and again, you can use your calculator for that. That looks like this: 72 divided by 240, and that's going to give me 0.3, because 240 won't go into 70 and it won't go into 72. So I end up with 0.3, which gives me 20. Okay? So 0.3 equals p percent. Alright, okay? So p percent equals 0.3. Alright? So to convert this to a percentage, I go 2 places to the right, and I get p equals 30%, and that would be my answer. Okay, right? This one says using the percent equation to find the whole or the base. All right, that would be B, right? So the number 80 is, again, that's equals, of means multiplication, right? 32 is my percent. I don't know the of or B, and I know the is 80. So there, I've translated it. Again, I'm going to turn my percent into a decimal. So I get 80 equals 32 hundredths times B. I need to undo my 32 hundredths times B, so I'm going to divide by 32 hundredths. And this is where you have to be really careful. Remember, you're dividing 80 by 0.32. So you're going to take 80, and you're going to divide it by 0.32, and you're going to get b equals 250. Okay, that makes sense because 80 is about a third, or 0.32, of 250. Okay, and that's the end of video 49 on changing percents to decimals and using the percent equation.